For Victims and Villains, my name is Josh, and today we are taking a trip back to 2015. This is The Priests. Priests tells the story of a priest and a deacon that partner up together to basically uncover a mystery surrounding a recent supposed possession in terms to actually identify whether or not it is indeed, in fact, a possession. Since 1974, possession movies have become a dime a dozen, really aiming to cash in or to kind of reach the level of greatness that was William Friedkin's The Exorcist. And don't get me wrong, there have been a few exceptions in that rule, from John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness to The Exorcism of Emily Rose and the first Conjuring film, but largely a lot of these films just feel generic and forgettable. But The Priests is slightly a little bit different. Because truth be told, it's a little bit of both sets of worlds. It has that very generic feel to it, but it also takes a lot of pages out of The Exorcist. And don't get me wrong, this is a traditional paint-by-numbers possession, supernatural, religious horror, whatever you want to call it. It hits all of those notes almost tit for tat. And a lot of this movie is very forgettable. Out of every possession movie that I have ever come across, this one feels like it studied The Exorcist the closest. A lot of the story arcs, a lot of the character development, a lot of the emotional core of The Priest feels almost like a updated version of The Exorcist. And that's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It's just kind of a noticeable thing. And it really kind of both makes this film worth watching, but also hinders it in that journey of watching it. This movie is predictable like every other possession movie. This movie is way longer than it needs to be, much like every other possession movie. But I think the thing that The Priest gets right that a lot of other is that it retains this heart, it retains this emotional core that allows you as the audience member to really latch on and connect with these characters. In one corner, you have our weary veteran who has just kind of seen a bit too much and has just been shaped by the tirelessness and the restlessness of the priesthood. Father Kim, who is played marvelously by Kim Yoon-seok. And probably my favorite part of this movie is probably the performance by Gang Dong-won, who plays Deacon Chai in this movie and offers actually up some surprisingly really humorous moments. Like very early on, there are funny parts in this movie that mostly revolve around Won, and I thought that was such an interesting thing because it's a rare thing to find in possession movies, to have these more comedic moments. It's a very intense, it's a very heavy thematic film, and I think the addition of the deacon element really allowed this film to kind of also stand in sync with stand apart from a lot of other genre films. Dong-won is kind of our stand-in for our Kerrigan archetype. Like I said, he does provide a lot of comic relief, but as the film kind of progresses, his character matures, and you kind of also really get to see a different side of him. And I think that he has the most range. And there is a portion in this film's third act where I do feel like the film could have been structured a little bit differently, or the fat of this could have been trimmed down a lot. This third act is just very meaty for not a lot of reasons. Not only does it feel very generic and very paint by the numbers, it's the reason you come to these types of movies, kind of jargon. But I will say that there is a moment where it kind of shifts expectations and really does something that I've never seen from any other possession movie, and made this probably my favorite climax of any possession movie since The Exorcist. I thought the way that they did these last 25 minutes was exceptional, and by far some of the film's best moments are in that last 25 minutes. I talked about this before, but just kind of talking about the pacing of this movie, it's kind of all over the place. I think this movie has beautiful pacing for the first act and a half. Once it kind of hits the crescendo of the actual exorcism portion, this movie hits the ground running at breakneck speed, and it attempts to return to that anxious-ridden, kind of not quite slow, but not quite as fast as the exorcism part, that nice middle ground in the last few minutes, and it just kind of feels like it fumbles it. And it kind of makes for this like awkward transition, but once it settles back into that pace of the beginning, it finds itself a nice, beautiful edge of your seat, you're invested type of entertainment. With that said, I am ready to run this one through our Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give The Priests from 2015 a 3 out of 5. Overall, I thought this was equal, kind of a mixed bag. It is both a generic but also a rather compelling exorcism movie. It has really solid performances in here, awkward pacing, paint by numbers, supernatural horror notes written all over it, but it has these nice breaks of comedy that are presented into it, and a really solid emotional core to at its dispense as well. In our show notes below, you guys will find links to our movie review section, our podcast network, social media, how to support us financially, and most importantly, our mental health resource library. So until next time, remember to keep it spooky, keep it classy. Have a good night.